Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor, my privilege to be here with you. And I'm also very happy that I'm the only person in this panel, besides the moderator himself, who does not belong to any of these political parties. In fact, I must confess that I made my living for the last 35 years criticizing all these political parties. You know, as a professional critic of those in positions of power and authority, I feel singularly privileged that I'm being given an occasion to be on the different side. Okay. You know, it's very fashionable, at least among middle classes, to sort of bash all politicians. And, you know, I'm not one of those. I've been writing and I'm a student of the political economy of this country. Therefore, I don't want to bash all politicians. I think there are politicians, and some of them are actually very decent people. And believe it or not, there are difficult to find, but you might even find politicians who are honest. They exist. I know you will not believe me, but I can tell you that in each of their parties, there are a few people who are decent, honest, ethical. But I also know that they're in a very, very small minority. So it's not surprising that there's a huge amount of cynicism among most people, especially those who are articulate representatives of the world of information technologies. All of you are. But to come to this topic of ePolitics and how is the new world, how is the brave new world of the internet media affecting politics? Now here let me suggest that India is not Egypt, India is not Tunisia, India is not South Korea or the United States of America. What we've seen across the world is having an impact on India, but in different ways. I was surprised that Professor Jaijit Bhattacharya didn't mention WikiLeaks. He talked about Tahrir Square, he talked about India against corruption, Occupy Wall Street. Right now, even as Julian Assange awaits whether or not he's going to go to Sweden and whether or not he's going to be accused of having done all kinds of things which he allegedly shouldn't have. The point is, WikiLeaks is a phenomenon. And if we look at it as a phenomenon, I think it's very, very interesting to look at it, how technology has changed politics and is changing politics. I mean, if you want to put 20,000 pieces of paper in the public domain, you will need about 20 trunk loads, and it would take about 4 able-bodied men to pick up those trunk loads. Why do I say this? Because when the good Mr. Raja was being taken to Patiala court, and the CBI had about 80,000 pieces of paper, there was the evidence that they had collected. They took about 8 trunks, big trunks, and they had to load it. They had 2 or 3 truckloads of these trunks to take them to the court. So today you can carry 20,000, what is equivalent to 20,000 pieces of paper, even more than that, on an iPod, which you can carry around in your pocket. So yes, technology has changed the way we live, we work, and the way we practice our politics. Most importantly, WikiLeaks never had at any point of time more than 8 or 10 or 12 people working with that organization. But different points of time, some of the most powerful organizations on the planet, including arguably the most powerful establishment on this planet, that's the government of the United States of America, felt threatened that all this muck, all these so-called secret cables entered the public domain. But I want to underscore 2 points here. WikiLeaks would not have had the impact that it had if the new media had not interacted with the existing media. So because there were newspapers who were able to read through those huge volumes of information, summarize them and provide them in digestible forms to people, it would not have had the kind of impact that it had. So again, we must realize the limitations of the new media. Yes, at one level, the internet is a source of mass communication. It's also a source of personalized communication. Yes, it's also a way in which individuals can express themselves in countries that restrict freedom of expression. It is indeed a very, very powerful means of democratization. But what do you do in other countries, including a country like India? Here, the forms of censorship or the forms of controlling the media are very, very much more different, very much more subtle. And I think that's very important for us to try and understand. Take the recent Information Technology Intermediary Rules. Prabir will tell you much more about this. But we have a set of ludicrous rules the government has. There was a lot of praise for all what the government has done. Of course, the government needs to be praised where praise is due. But let's also look where the government goofs up and how badly it goofs up and why it deliberately goofs up. And the IT intermediary rules is a classic example. You've defined everybody from your internet service provider to your internet cafe as an intermediary. So if there's any objectionable content, whether it be child pornography or hate speech, you are asking the cafe owner and the service provider to play the role of the judge. That's effectively what the IT intermediary rules have done. When a motion was moved in the Rajya Sabha to annul these rules, eventually Mr. Kapil Sibal said, yes, we will listen to you. Yes, please write to us and tell us all that is wrong. But if you've seen the set of guidelines that were put out by the CERT team, the Computer Emergency Response team headed by Mr. Gulshan Rai, you sometimes wonder, is the government doing it deliberately? Because it wants to control flows of information? It wants to say, no, we are not like China. We believe in Article 19(1)A of the Constitution of India that guarantees freedom of expression, but there's also an Article 19(2) of the Constitution of India which says there should be reasonable restrictions. Who decides what these reasonable restrictions are? Who decides what is hate speech? Who decides what speech will result in law and order getting disrupted? Or which is criminally defamatory? Is it the internet cafe owner? Is it the telecom service provider, the internet service provider? Or is it the judiciary? This is why these rules are ludicrous, and this falls into a pattern of all people in positions of power and authority today, in government, in politics, who are extremely uneasy that information flows are becoming accessible to larger and larger numbers of people. That they have that these free flows of information that the internet provides you has the potential to democratize, to empower ordinary citizens and create a society which is more transparent and therefore less corrupt. Having said this, let's also try and understand the limitations of modern technology. Can every blogger become Shakespeare? Can every person who puts his child's video onto YouTube pretend to be a top-notch cinematographer? Yes, the internet has made more and more voices can be more easily heard. But let's also understand the limitations of this new medium. Let's also understand that we live in a country where the 2011 census has pointed out that 1 out of 4 people in India still cannot read and write his or her own name. You look at the world internet stats and you'll know what the digital divide is all about. On this planet, 2 out of 3 people out of the 7 billion people still haven't used the internet according to one set of statistics. That proportion is abysmally low in India. I don't think 1/5 of our population has even used the internet even once. Having said that, it's all very fine for the government to say, yes, we want the internet to reach out to large numbers of people. But what are the limitations? Yes, take the case of mobile telephony as a very, very example. Again, Prabir here knows a lot about this subject. Today, in this city that you and I are in at present, there are more mobile phones than human beings. You know that, of course. You have to just go out 100 miles away and you'll see the teledensity drop. Yes, there are about 700 million subscribers, roughly 900 million subscriptions or SIM cards. But, What is the ugly underbelly of this great Indian telecom revolution? You see the mess the telecom sector is in today. Thanks to my friend Mr. Raja, who spent only 15 months in Tihar jail and then he went back home and he was given a hero's welcome. Mr. Kapil Sibal says there's no loss. But the Controller and Auditor General says there's 1,72,000 crore loss, notional loss to the exchequer of this country. It's up to you to believe one person or the other. But if you believe the CAG, this is equivalent to 40 billion US dollars. It's the biggest scandal, not just in India, perhaps in the world. So what we are seeing is, together with the digital divide, the way the internet is interacting with society, it's creating two contrasts. It's actually often not making our society more egalitarian and more democratic. It has the potential. I do sincerely believe it has the potential, but that potential is not being realized. And there are large sections within the political class, within the bureaucracy that is subservient to the political class, that does not want this medium to democratize, to empower people, to make society more transparent. And remember, transparency is the classic double-edged sword. We have a representative of Team Anna here, India Against Corruption. It's the same media. It's the same media that made Anna Hazare into a larger-than-life character. But remember that the media would not have been successful if it had not been for the arrogance and the stupidity of the government of India. After all, they first arrested Anna Hazare, right? Any high school student would have told you, as soon as you take him to Tihar jail, you will make him into a superstar. And then they insult your intelligence. Our Honorable Home Minister, our Honorable Minister for Corporate Affairs, our Honorable Minister for Information Technology. What did they say? It's not us, it's the Delhi police. It's a police commissioner. They decided to put him in Tihar jail. So, thanks to the arrogance and the stupidity of a few in government, the media blew up what happened and articulated the anger and the frustration of ordinary people against corruption. But it was the same media that also brings down these same superstars. These same gods are sometimes shown to have feet of clay. It's the same media. So the media also acts in more ways. It's that double-edged sword. So this is the way I'm seeing the role of technology, the role of the internet in politics, is still going through a huge state of flux. It's almost as bad as the political situation that prevailed in the 48 hours, that one. Now you know that Pranab Mukherjee the UP has formally stated that he's going to be our presidential candidate. But the kind of confusion, the kind of chaos that you see, out of that, the question is, will Indian society, and especially the underprivileged sections of Indian society, will they truly get empowered? Will they truly become politically aware? Will the electronic media, will the internet truly empower ordinary citizens? Yes, eventually they will. Eventually it will. It must. There is a certain inevitability. It's inexorable. It will happen. But how soon will it happen? And my view is that it's not going to happen in a hurry. There are going to be a lot of hurdles that are going to be placed in the way. And these are going to be placed in the way by the same people who belong to political parties and governments who are represented here. I'm sure they'll be able to speak for themselves. But I'm arguing here that what we are seeing across the world, we'll also see in India, that those in positions of power and authority, including our political leaders and our bureaucrats and the corporate captains who provide them the funds, legally and illegally, that nexus between business, politics, and the bureaucracy, they will try their level best to ensure that the new media, that the internet, the process of empowerment is delayed, is slowed down, and not expedited. And it's up to ordinary people, it's up to ordinary citizens, it's up to civil society to resist this trend. And I hope that it happens. We also must not jump the gun. The Bharatiya Janata Party in 2004, Mr. Bora will tell you, said India was shining. I would get a telephone call saying, hello, I am Atal Bihari Vajpayee, please vote for me. Mr. Pramod Mahajan, the late Mr. Pramod Mahajan, thought that this would be one way that the Bharatiya Janata Party would return to power. We know what happened in 2004. We also saw the change of what's happening in Uttar Pradesh. Vaishali Ali will tell you more. Mulayam Singh Yadav's son Akhilesh Yadav is a different person. Mulayam Singh said computers are all bad. Akhilesh Yadav says, I use an iPad. But Akhilesh Yadav is one not so young man of 39. We have another not so old person who's 42 years old. His name is Rahul Gandhi. You also know what happened to him after the elections. Both are ostensibly believers of this technology. But you see, the electorate supports one, rejects one. And it's got nothing to do with technology. And hopefully that will also happen. And hopefully technology will be able to expedite that process, and civil society will check those in positions of power and authority who want to prevent this process from happening. Thank you very much for listening to me.